Hello everyone. So in this video I'll be discussing UGC NET past year 2023. We have already discussed, and this is of December shift. We have already discussed paper 1, which was common to all. Now I'll be discussing paper 2, which is core economics. So there are 100 questions, each carries 2 marks, no negative marking. And so if you are scoring anywhere between 70 to 75, it is highly probable that you will be able to clear GRF, and if you are scoring in this range, you would be able to clear the net, given you are scoring a decent you are having a decent score in the paper 1. Okay, now starting with the economics questions. The expert committee set up by RBI in 2013 to revise and strengthen the monetary policy framework in India was chaired by. So this led to the formation of monetary policy committee only, and I hope you would be aware of this. The answer for this is Urjit Patel. Michael Depatra was the deputy governor. He is still the deputy governor. Okay. Now, under the flexible inflation targeting framework of monetary policy adopted by the RBI in 2016, what is the target range of rate of inflation? So this is clear to everyone, I hope, and they have breached this mark as well. So the monetary policy committee have submitted a report to the central government as well. And this target is set every 5 years by the central government, and then the central government asks the monetary policy committee to make sure that this target is achieved throughout. Okay, moving to the next question. In a regression of a dependent variable on intercept and k other independent variables using n observations, what are respectively the numerator and denominator degrees of freedom for f test? So f test is r square upon k minus 1, 1 minus r square upon n minus k. So k minus 1, n minus k. The answer is first. Suppose xi is income of an individual I and yi is the event that this individual owns a house. Probability pi equals to probability y equals to xi given xi. That is, it's the probability that the individual owns a house given his income level, where z equals to this, which of the following is the logit model. I studied this way back, so I'm not sure about this, so I'll just guess on this particular question. Okay, now 55th question. If the estimated slope coefficient in the regression of y on x is beta hat, so if we have y equals to alpha naught plus beta hat x, what will be the estimated slope coefficient in the regression of 5y on 10x? So we are multiplying. So this is the weight that is being assigned to y, and this is the weight that is being assigned to x's, 5 times by 10 times. So the new beta hat star would be w1 by w2 beta hat. So it would be 5 upon 10, which is 0.5 beta hat. So this is basic econometrics. This you can find in Gujarati as well. Okay. Following test has stationarity as the null hypothesis. Stationarity, I am not sure which particular test, so I might guess it, but I have heard about this test, so I'll go. This is a blind or some calculated guess. Oh, this might be a blind guess only. Okay. For a VAR model, still I have no idea about this. So this would be a guess. Okay, now suppose India is the home country and USA is the foreign country. Interest rate in India, and then USA is 6% in India, 4% in USA. The exchange rate of US dollar is rupees 40 today, but is expected to rise to 84 in 1 year. So it is rupees 80 today. It is expected to rise to 84 in 1 year. So what we can see is the currency is depreciating, suppose by this 4%. And okay, so 84 minus 80 by 80 into 100. this would be the depreciation, percentage of depreciation happening. So this would be 4 by 80 into 100. So our currency is depreciating by 5%, right? The interest rate is higher by 2%. So plus 2 minus 5. So on an average, so if we combine the both these effects of interest rate and the depreciation, we see the currency would be depreciating by 3%. So capital would not flow into the economy. So there would be capital outflows in the economy because the value of our currency would be falling. Okay. Now, 59th question. In the model, log yi equals to alpha plus beta xi plus ui, where log is natural log, the elasticity of y with respect to x is. So elasticity of y with respect to x is change in y by change in x into x by y. Now given this log model, if we differentiate this, 1 by y del y should be equals to beta del x. 1 by y del y by del x equals to beta. And elasticity is x by y. So we will multiply here by x and we will multiply beta by x. So this is our answer. This is basic from Gujarati only. Okay, now moving to the next question. In an economy, real GDP has increased from 990 to 1080 during this period. The incremental capital output ratio is this. The rate of investment is. So the change in GDP is 1080 minus 990. 108. Okay, incremental capital output ratio is 2.5. So now, okay, in an economy, real GDP has increased from $990 PPP to 1080, okay, 90. The incremental capital output ratio is ये. Okay, so we have this formula, change in y equals to change in k into incremental capital output ratio. So change in y upon change in k. And change in y is 90. Change in k upon change in y by change in k is 2.5. So 90 upon 2.5. Okay, if we'll solve this, 5, 180, this would be I might be doing some calculation error. I guess I'll visit this question again at the end, because this is a doable question, because the increase in GDP is 90 only. Incremental capital output ratio is 2.5. So ठीक है, I'll visit this again later. Okay, now coming to the 61st question. Which of the following dimension is included in HPI2, Human Poverty Index 2? So since we are talking about poverty specifically, it should be economic inclusion, because gender inclusion doesn't that influence poverty, but majorly economic inclusion would impact poverty. So I'll just mark this. Which question is this? This is 60. Okay. Okay, now coming to 62nd question. The difference between the rate of growth of productivity, the solo residual is the difference between the rate of growth of productivity and the, so solo residual y equals to a k to the power alpha. It shows what proportion of output is left after accounting to the proportion of output explained by the inputs, capital and labor. So the difference between the rate of growth of output and rate of growth of saving, productivity and rate of growth of inputs, between the golden So the difference between golden rule of consumption nahi, the difference between the rate of growth of output and the rate of growth of inputs. So if you will take log, we have log y equals to log a plus alpha log k plus beta log L. So this gives elasticities only, and the remaining is the solo residual. Okay, now coming to 63rd question. So Gini coefficient, a widely used measure of inequality in income, is defined as, okay, I'm not sure about the formula, but I remember this 2 is not there. So I'll guess it between this and this. And this j less than equal to 1 doesn't make sense, because y would be 0 only, y0 would we would have y0 and y1 only, so this would be removed. So I'll go with 4. Okay, endogenous growth theory. So if they are talking about Romer model, which is an example of endogenous growth theory only, assumes increasing return. They assume yes. Perfect competition, no. They don't assume perfect competition. They assume that there is imperfect competition, and they assume there is increasing returns to scale. That is why one of the factor input is paid more than their contribution. Okay, 65th. Suppose you are testing a null hypothesis about the population mean. Against this, with population variance given, the computed value of the test statistic is ZC. What is the p-value for this test, where this is the cumulative distribution? So this we would have a one-tailed test, so divided by 2 should not be there. And I'm not exactly clear, but I guess this should be the p-value. This would give you the probability of having this statistic value, and this would give you the probability of having a statistic value less than this. Okay, now the power of test. Power of test is 1 minus beta, which is 1 minus probability of type 2 error. So this was straightforward question only. Coming to 67. Given a random sample of size n from a population mean mu, variance sigma square, the sample mean has the following expected value and variance. Expected x cannot be this. Okay, this is very basic only. Expected x equals to mu and variance x equals to sigma square by n. This is basic econometrics. Okay. Now coming to 68th question. In March 2023, the CPI of a country with 1982 base index of 100. So in 92, this is the base here, base index, the value is 100, was 234.7 in 2023. So this means the cost of purchasing the market goods has, so first of all it has increased, right? So it has increased by 234.7 minus 100 upon 100 into 100. 134.7 by 100 into 100. So we have, this has increased by 134.7%. Now the question 69. Consider production function Q equals to x plus y, where x and y are two inputs. If the respective input prices are wx, wy, and assume wx is greater than wy. Sorry. Then the cost function is, now since wx is greater than wy, and according to the production function, both of them are perfect substitutes. And since x is more costlier than y, then the producer would only hire y. It makes sense for him to hire only y, because both of them are giving the same level of production, but the cost of y is less. So it would be wy into q. Okay. 70th question. Suppose a cost function of producing q level of output is given by this. So the cost function is wr alpha equals to q times w alpha plus r beta, where uh, w is wage cost, r is rental cost of capital and labor respectively. What should be the production function of q and l? Okay, now if we want to solve this question, what we can do is we can try for the first function. mpl by mpk should be equals to w by r. This would gives mpl is beta, mpk is alpha. This should be equals to w by r. Then if we solve it, we'll get beta r equals to w alpha. Similarly, if the total cost function is wl plus rk, so we can substitute these values there. And so I would suggest to attempt this question only if you have adequate time with you. Like first, this question would take around 2 to 3 minutes or more than that. So what you need to make sure is that if you have adequate time, or you need to attempt these questions at the last, because if you keep on attempting it before, you'll miss out on the easier questions. So in this case, suppose we are talking about the third case, alpha L equals to beta K. So they are used in the fixed proportion. Irrespective of what the wage and the rental cost is, they would be used in the fixed proportion. So we have L equals to beta by alpha K, and cost is WL plus RK. So this becomes W beta by alpha plus R K. This becomes W by alpha, and if I take K common, plus R. This is the cost. And if you'll see, K is coming out to be, if you'll see, so R alpha by alpha, so K is coming out to be alpha C upon WB plus R alpha. And similarly, we will find the value of L with the help of this, and we'll put it in the cost function. Cost function is WL plus RK. So L would be beta by alpha, alpha C W beta plus R alpha. So alpha cancels out. Now the cost would be, the cost function would be WL plus RK. And if you'll solve this, substituting L and K, you'll get the final value as this. Okay, now moving on to the next question. But these questions you are supposed to attempt only when you have adequate time. You have gone through the paper once. Okay, if xy is a homogeneous function of degree 2 with f dash 2 3 equals to 4, then find f of 6 9. Okay, I tried solving this. I had no idea, so I'll just guess this question. If the average revenue function is this, then the marginal revenue function is convex, concave, both weakly concave function. So okay, so if P is given to us, P is average revenue, which is 10 plus 5Q minus Q square. So total revenue would be P into Q, which is 10Q plus 5Q square minus 5Q minus Q cube. So if we differentiate the total revenue with respect to quantity, we'll find marginal revenue. So del TR by del Q gives 10 plus 10Q minus 3Q square. So this is the marginal revenue. Now del MR by del Q. This is the first derivative, 10 minus 6Q. Del 2MR by del Q. Differentiating it again gives you minus 6. So For all values of q, if the second derivative with respect to q of mr is negative, then we have a concave function. And this, okay, this is basic maths only. Okay, now 73. I'll suggest that you attempt this question only when you have ample time. Utility function is ux equals to 10 root x, where x is the money of the income consumer. Suppose the consumer's initial endowment is 50. Initially, suppose x is 50. Suppose she may suffer a loss of rupees 25 with probability 0.5 for some random event. Okay, so with probability 0.5, she will have 25 only. Suppose she pays P premium for an insurance policy that fully reimburses her if she suffers a loss. How much premium would she be willing to pay for to insure against the loss? Now suppose initially her utility is 10 into 50, 10 into 5 root 2, which is 50 root 2. Now if she pays an insurance premium, so in this case, if she pays an insurance premium, the utility would be 25, and since she is paying the insurance premium, she'll get the full amount back. But on the other hand, if she is not paying the premium, she'll be left with this much utility. She'll be left with this much utility only. 10 root 5. I would suggest this would need a bit of calculation, which will take time. So the utility would be x minus p, and this should be equals to, if the amount is insured. Okay, I'll do the calculations later on for this. Okay, I'll just remember 73. We were supposed to do 60 as well. Okay, suppose f is a continuous function over a closed and bounded interval, then there exists a point D where f has a minima and a point C has a maxima, so that the statement is derived from. So they have given that there is a minima, there is a maxima as well. So this is an extreme value theorem. Extreme values are itself maxima and minima. So it is very straightforward. 74 we have done. 75. Consider consumer's choice based on only two commodities. X belongs to R plus, where X is a set of all commodity bundles consume can conceive of. Suppose X and Y are two different commodity bundles, and the budget set B of the consumer can be written as like this. True. So this is the budget set for the consumer. The budget set is open. This is not open. This is a closed bounded interval. It is bounded. It is not open. Not a bounded, we will read. The closed and non-convex. A convex set has a property that if you will take any 2 points within it, it would lie within the set only. So this is a convex set. Irrespective of what points you take, it would lie exactly in it. So 4. Okay, now coming to 76th question. This looks like a very long question to read. Consider Bertrand duopoly, where the two firms produce a homogeneous product. Assume the market demand curve is y1 plus y2 equals to 1 minus p, where p is the relevant market price, y is the total amount demanded at price y1. y1 and y2 are the output levels of firm 1 and 2 respectively. This is the cost function given, where cy equals to half yi. The rules of pricing games are as follows. Each firm must simultaneously quote a price in this interval. So prices can be set between 0 and 1. If prices are different, the firm with lower prices sells all the unit, which makes sense. If they quote the same price, the amount demanded is split between them. So they are asking what price should be charged. Now suppose if both charge a price, Okay, what would be the Nash equilibrium quantity, price and quantity? Now suppose if the firm charges 1, both of them are charging 1, then what would happen is, if they're charging a price of 1, the other firm has an incentive to reduce their price and capture the whole market. So charging a price equal to 1 cannot be an equilibrium. And none of the firm would prefer to charge a higher price or a higher price than the other firm, because in this case firm 1 won't have any demand, in this case firm 2 won't have any demand. So we would be left with only one firm, in this case P2, the firm 2, in this case firm 1, that will be satisfying the whole market. So, and similarly this would be the Nash equilibrium given the cost function. Okay, moving to the next question. Suppose the cost function this, where W1, W2 are price of two inputs. Which of the following are the properties of the cost function? Is monotone? Monotone means it is increasing. Non-monotone, it is not increasing in W1 and W2. It is increasing in W1 and W2. So non-monotone to हट जाएगा. Concave, it is a continuous function, right? For if W and the prices are positive only, so this would be a continuous function. It is discontinuous, this would be removed. Now we are left with monotone, concave, continuous, homogeneous, degree 0. Now if we scale W1 to alpha W1 and W2 to alpha W2, so the cost function would become alpha W1 comma alpha W2 comma y equals to y times alpha W1 plus under root of alpha W1 alpha W2 plus alpha W2. So this would be alpha W1 plus W1 W2 plus W2. So in this case what we have is, it is increasing homogeneous function in degree 1. So the answer would be 1. Okay, the demand and supply function for Cobweb model are given as, okay, first you need to equate this price, 19 minus 6p 6pt minus 1 minus 5. Cobweb phenomena you must be knowing it. So 24 equals to 12p, p equals to 2. So these are removed. And since the slope of the curves are same, so it would be uniform oscillation. Slope is 6 and 6, minus 6 and 6. So the absolute value is same. So it would be uniform oscillation. Okay, now two players, payoffs. They can either go for Diwali shopping or watch World Cup cricket match. Now let's find the Nash equilibrium only. Suppose player 2 goes for Diwali shopping. What should the player 1 choose? Watching World Cup would give him 0, and going for Diwali shopping would give him 1. And suppose the player 2 goes for watching World Cup, then the player 1 should prefer watching World Cup as well. So both of them would prefer to go together only. And if player 1 is doing Diwali shopping, then player 2 would also prefer to do Diwali shopping. And if player 1 is preferring to watch the World Cup, player 2 would also prefer to watch the World Cup. So we would have two Nash equilibriums. There is no Nash equilibrium, only one, any of the four. So we are left with only 2. In case of two perfect complements, which statement is not true? The substitution effect is 0. The substitution effect is 0. The indifference covers straight lines. So the indifference covers straight lines. Are not straight line, they are L-shaped curves in case of perfect complement codes. So this is wrong. Okay, moving to the next question. Okay, this is fairly easy to do. You can solve this and you will be able to find. Okay, either which of the following is not correct. So you don't need to attempt all of this. It will save you time, because look at option 1 and option 3. Both are giving you the same value, so either one of them would be right. So we can find A transpose. A transpose would be 2034. A transpose into B would be 2304 2015. So this would be 4 0 10 3 into 0 4 into 20. Okay, so this is correct. So the wrong one is this. Okay, now moving to the 82nd question. According to the census 2011, which major Indian state is the most urbanized? Uh, this would be a guess question only. Okay, now coming to 83rd question. In a market for labor's demand and supply, the equilibrium wage is W star. The government fixes a minimum wage at, this is the W star. So if the government wants to set a minimum wage at W1, which of the following statement true? So the minimum wage acts like a price floor, because if they set a minimum wage like below this, it would eventually get back to this, because there would be an excess demand for labor and this would lead to increase in the wage rate. There's a tendency. Okay, which of the following statements is true? There's a tendency of increased casualization of workers if W dash is greater than W star, where the workers would not receive lots of benefits, which makes sense because this would be the labor demanded, and this at the prevailing minimum wage, and this would be the excess labor that is willing to supply their labor, so that would lead to casualization. Okay, look at other options as well. The market will now tend towards a new equilibrium at W dash. Okay, market where the workers would, with no other changes, if W dash is okay, but there would be excess supply of labor in that. If W dash is less than W star, there will be a tendency of increased casualization of worker. No, if it is less than, it will eventually get back to W star. So this is removed. It will be impossible to administer such a legislation. This is also not right, because Manrega also leads to ensuring a reservation wage. Okay. Now, question 84. In the given figure, demand DD is the demand curve, SS supply curve. We need to choose the right answer. Okay. At this point, so if we go above this, for any price above this, what we have is there is excess demand. This is the supply and this is the demand. So we have excess demand. Since we have excess demand, prices would rise further away from it. So if we deviate from it, prices would rise further away from it. And similarly, at a lower price, there is excess supply and prices would keep on falling. So at E2, we have unstable equilibrium. This E2 is a stable equilibrium. Both are. So we are left with this only. E2 is an unstable equilibrium. And we need to check for E1. So for E1, at any price above P1, there is excess supply. This is the supply, this is demand, this is excess supply. So prices would fall. So we'll get back to here. And similarly, for any price lower than this, we have excess demand and prices would rise. So E1 is a stable equilibrium and E2 is an unstable equilibrium. Okay, now Coming to 85th question. If the revenue deficit of an economy is 3%, revenue deficit is 3%, primary deficit is 2%, and fiscal deficit is 7%. We are supposed to find the capital expenditure to GDP ratio for the economy. So, fiscal deficit is because of two reasons. Fiscal deficit minus interest payments gives you primary deficit, but this is not required. Fiscal deficit either can be due to revenue deficit or capital deficit. If revenue deficit is 3%, fiscal deficit is 7%, so capital deficit would be 4%. Okay. If the interest rate is exogenously determined by the central bank of some country and the money supply is endogenously determined. So if the interest rate is determined, so this should be the interest rate throughout. I. The slope of the LM curve in the interest rate plane would be, so the LM curve would be like this because this is being fixed. So it would be horizontal. Okay, now moving to 87th. Higher fiscal deficit to GDP ratio would necessarily cause inflation if the economy is under. If the economy is under demand constraint situation, then higher government expenditure won't lead to fiscal deficit. But if it is under supply constraint situation, so the demand by the government for goods and services is increasing, but whereas on the other hand the supply is fixed, so that leads to more inflation. The chance of inflation would be high. Under the flexible exchange rate, if the current account deficit increases and the capital surplus increases for an economy, the exchange rate would. Okay, so if the current account deficit increases, that means if CAD is increasing, our currency should depreciate. Whereas, and the capital account surplus increases for an economy. If capital account surplus is increasing, this means our currency is appreciating. So the final impact would depend on which of the forces higher. Okay. Repo rate is the interest rate, so this is a basic question, at which the commercial banks borrow from the RBI. An economy characterized by huge involuntary unemployment would have an aggregate labor supply curve in a real wage labor supply plane. That would be. So since there is huge involuntary unemployment, there would be large number of labor who would be willing to provide the services at the given wage rate. So it would be flat. Okay. World Hunger Index includes. So if you have any idea, it includes child mortality, child wasting, undernourishment and child stunting. And the weights are: child mortality is given a weight of 1/3. Undernourishment is also has been given a weight of 1/3, whereas child wasting has been given a weight of 1/6. So this might be a bit random, so you can go with a guess only because the options are very close. Okay, now coming to 92nd question, linear probability model. I am not sure about it, so I'll just guess here and save me some time. For 93rd question, white noise process with variance sigma. I'm still not. This means I need to brush up my ecotrics skills. So I'll have in this question itself, I'll make a guess and then move on to the next part. Okay. Which of the following are features of a weakly stationary stochastic process? Mean is time varying. This is not true. Mean is constant. Variance is constant. Covariance is time invariant. So it would be BCD. So this was the basic part. So at least my basics are right. Okay. Now moving on to the next question. Suppose an economy is in medium run equilibrium. Now the government enacts a law making entry of new firms difficult, which increase the monopoly power of the existing firm. Which of the following statement true about this change? Output would be lower in the medium run. Yes, output would be lower in the medium run because the monopoly power has been increased. So it won't be lower in the short run. It would be short. In the medium run, the monopoly power is getting generated. And so the price would be higher as well. For a monopoly, output will be lower, price would be higher in the medium run. So we'll have A and C. Okay. Now moving to 96th question. Among the new monetary aggregates suggested by third working group of RBI, which ones include time deposits of less than 1 year or equal to 1 year but does not include time deposits with term more than 1 year? So in this question, this is question 95th. I'm not sure about it. So this would be the most liquid one. Okay, I'll just make a guess only. Okay. Which one of the following are money market instruments? 91-day treasury bill is not a money market instrument. It's an instrument which is being taken care by the government itself. Similarly, the 5-year bond, 5-year government bond. So we would be left with B and C only. Oh, for money market instruments, the tenure should be less than 1 year, I guess. So this can be also incorporated. So it would be A, B and C or B and C only. Okay, so consider the following statement about current account of balance of payments and indicate which statement are true. Current account deficit equals excess of imports over sum of exports and net transfer received by a country. So we know this statement is true. Current account deficit may be covered by borrowing from foreigners. This is also true. Current account deficit may be covered by buying assets from foreigner. So if you are buying assets, you are eventually making out more payments to them. So that would worsen the current account deficit. So this cannot be possible. C is not there. C would cancel, C cancel, C cancel. So we are left with D. A, B, D. We are not. So you can skip the statement D as well in your exam. So that would save you time in solving. And you could solve some other questions with that. Save time. Okay. Now, suppose India is home country and USA is a foreign country. Interest rate in India is 3%. That in USA is 1%. So in India, the interest rate is 3%. In USA, it is 1%. Exchange rate is 80 rupees 80 in spot market, 81 in forward market. Forward market. Which of the following are true for the resulting covered interest arbitrage flows? Okay. So first thing, Indian rupee will depreciate in the spot market. So because there's a 2% difference here, so it is expected that Indian rupee would depreciate. Indian rupee will depreciate in forward market. So A was already right. So we don't need to study A as well. Now interest rate will decline in US. If the interest rate declines in US, the interest rate would widen more. So eventually either the interest rate in US should rise or in the interest rate in India should fall. So interest rate will decline in India. So we have C as well. And D is cancelled out. So we are left with A and C. So we are left with A and C. The current account deficit of BOP may be financed in many ways. Which of the following are correct? FDI inflows, inflow of this foreign FPIs, borrowings from IMF or World Bank, drawing from, yeah, all of them are correct. Okay. Now since we have done 100 questions, I'll take just a 2-minute break. Okay, now starting with 101 question. Consider the following statement about the specific factors model of international trade and say which ones are correct. Factors specific to export sector in each country gain from trade. Specific to import competing sector lose from trade. This is also right. Mobile factors, the impact is ambiguous. So we don't know whether they would gain from trade or lose from trade. Gain from trade may lose, may gain. So both of them are correct. So answer would be A, B, C, D. Now moving on to 102. Following statement about aggregate demand relation under price flexibility and say which ones are correct. AD curve will shift to right if autonomous investment increases. So the equation of AD curve is AD is y equals to C plus I plus G plus NX. So if autonomous investment rises, it would shift towards the right. So this option is eliminated. The AD curve will shift to the right if net exports increases. Okay, this rises, this would rise. B is also correct. So this is also removed. Now C is correct because C is present in all of it. So no need to check C. For D, as price rises. So the LM equation is M by P equals to KY minus HI. Now if price rises, M by P falls, LM curve shifts left and so does AD curve. So this is also true. So the answer would be D. Now coming to 103rd question. Statement about major schools of thought in macroeconomics. State which ones are correct. Keynesians believed in wage and price flexibility and highlighted the role of aggregate supply. Okay, so they were mostly concerned with aggregate demand only. They stated that aggregate supply is not vertical, it is upward sloping. So changes in aggregate demand would impact it. The monetarists highlighted the importance of money in the economic system and that of expectation in the analysis of inflation. This is correct. The classical school believed in the invisible hand, okay, and the efficiency of the market mechanism. New Keynesians make use of the imperfect markets. So you can go with BCD or ABCD. So it would depend whether they highlighted the role. They said that aggregate supply should be upward sloping. But the main focus was on showing that it is due to aggregate demand that the output level increases. So I would prefer to go with A. Now 104 question. Consider an economy with perfect capital mobility, fixed price level, flexible exchange rate. Starting from an equilibrium, suppose there is a monetary expansion. So fixed flexible exchange rate, we are talking about perfect capital mobility. This is IS, this is LM, this is balance of payment curve, Y and I. There is monetary expansion. It shifts to LM dash. Interest rate falls, and says there is a flexible exchange rate with fall in the interest rate. Now, if the interest rate falls, our currency would depreciate. And now, if our currency depreciates, the IS curve should move towards the right because our exports would increase. Exports is given by X, so we would have a shift like this. So what we can see is interest rate is same, output has increased. Output will be higher since consumption equals to A plus BY, and if Y is increased, C would also increase. Consumption will be higher, interest rate will be lower. No, there would be no change in the interest rate, so we have A and B. Okay, now coming to 105th question, what we have is let H equals to EQ, where Q equals to AX to the power alpha, Y to the power beta. Q is a homogeneous function for all values of alpha and beta. So if you are increasing X and Y by alpha, if you are increasing X and Y by alpha, what we'll have is A alpha power X alpha beta Y beta. So this is alpha plus beta A X cube power alpha Y cube power beta. So irrespective of what values of alpha and beta are, Q would be a homogeneous function. H is a homothetic function for all values of alpha and beta. So a homothetic function means a monotonic transformation of a homogeneous function. Okay, Q is a homogeneous function only if alpha plus beta equals to 1. This would show constant returns to scale, but only if this won't be right. So C is wrong. And we know A is right, so this would also be eliminated. And A and B, so B is also right given the options. Now we need to look at this only, at D. H is not a homogeneous function. If you look at it, this is true, because if you are increasing it by alpha, e to the power something alpha is increasing. The output is not increased by the same proportion. So we have this as our answer. Now moving to the 106th question. Okay, this is also a fairly easy question to do. Okay, this is 2 3 cross 2, this is 1 2 2 cross 1. You can find A cross B. B into A won't be defined because 2 into 1, this should be 3 into 2, so these are not equal, so B into A is not defined. This is true. D is there for sure, so, and A is also there, so we need to just check for E. A transpose would be 2 into 3 and B is 2 into 1. So A transpose B is also not defined, so this is false. So the answer would be 4. Okay, now moving to the 107th question. Short run cost curve. The marginal cost curves cut both short run average cost, average variable cost at their lowest point. This is true. The marginal cost curve cuts AC from below, but nothing can be said about it cuts average variable cost from below as well. So this statement is false. The distance between total cost curve and total variable cost gets reduced as quantity increases. No, because the total distance is okay. So we have total cost equals to total variable cost and total fixed cost. And this distance, so TC minus TVC is TFC, which is always fixed. It is the case that the distance between average cost and average variable cost gets reduced. So this is also false. So C. Now A and E are right. A and E are right. We need to look at these. D is asymptotic to the cost axis. Okay, this is true as well because average fixed cost keeps on falling. It's a rectangular hyperbola only. So our answer would be D, fourth part. Okay, now gets reduced. Okay, now moving on to 108 question. OLS regression output of wages on education, years of schooling, cognitive ability scores comes out to be this. So wages is dependent on years of schooling and cognitive ability scores. The explained sum of squares is this. Okay, the explained sum of squares is this with degrees of freedom 2. Residual sum of squares is this with degrees of freedom, which is the following statements are true. The value of T statistics for 1 year increase in schooling, wage would increase by 0.64 into 1000. Wage would increase by 640. This would come out to be 640 when C is kept constant. So this is right. A is correct. Or we didn't have to study A because it was already correct. Now looking at B, the value of T statistics of CA. CA statistic, TA statistics would be 0.15 upon standard error minus 0 upon this 0.05, which is 3. So this is also correct. So this is removed because it doesn't have B in it. So either C is correct or D is correct. So F statistic is given by R square, and R square would be explained sum of square upon total sum of squares. Explained sum of squares upon degrees of freedom is 2, and in the denominator the degrees of freedom should be, we have degrees of freedom as k minus 1 in the numerator. The denominator it is n minus k. So A, B, C are correct. So we go with okay. Next question regarding demography across India's major states. Kerala pioneered fertility transition in India, which is true. A was already true. Now Bihar has high MR, infant mortality rate, as well as low reporting of morbidity. This you can expect to be true. So we are left with option 2 in 4 only. So the D would be always wrong. Odisha immunized children. Okay, so this would be a 50-50 case. After this point, this would be a 50-50 case. Okay, so the eigenvalues of A minus lambda I. You can put this equals to 0. You will get the values of lambda for which this is being satisfied. So 3, it would be 3 minus lambda. A minus lambda I would become 3 minus lambda, 5 minus 2 minus 4 minus lambda. This determinant should be equals to 0. We have 3 minus lambda into minus 4 minus lambda plus 10 equals to 0, minus 12 minus 3 lambda plus 4 lambda plus lambda square plus 10 is 0. So if you'll solve this, you'll get lambda square. Why is this not plus lambda minus 2 equals to 0. This is the characteristic equation polynomial that we're getting. Okay, so this is right. Polynomial is this. this is wrong. This is not the same as this, the signs have changed. So we are left with A and D only. A was right, so we have already eliminated this option. Since B was wrong, B and C were wrong, this would be eliminated. We are left with D. If you'll solve it, you will get the lambda value as -2 and 1. Okay. Now, production function is Q equals to F of K comma L, homogeneous of degree 1. Consider the following statement: marginal product of capital and labor are homogeneous of degree 1. Okay. Now looking at the next question. The next statement. The marginal product would not be homogeneous of degree 1, it would be of degree 0. If the production function is of degree 1, then the derivative of it would be of degree 0. So if the production function was of degree n, homogeneous of degree n, then its derivative would be homogeneous of degree n minus 1. So this is Young's theorem, this is right. Euler's theorem, this is also right. This is also right. The double derivative would give you a value of 0. So we would go with B, C, D. Okay, this I would guess only. This I have studied from a master's entrance. I don't recall it exactly right now. Consumer's choice. Okay, you can just read this question. Monotonicity of preferences implies strong monotonicity but not the other way around. A preference relation. A monotonicity of preference implies strong monotonicity but not the other way around. So if it is strong monotonicity, it won't lead to... this is a false statement because strong monotonicity would imply monotonicity of preferences as well. So A would be removed for sure. Then we are left with option A only, option 1 only. Okay, now coming to 114. Now no need to study the second statement because it is present everywhere, right? So we need to study the other statements. If the two utility functions ux and bx are related by ux equals to vbx, where v dash is greater than 0, then vx is a utility function representing the same preferences as bx. Okay, this is a monotonic transformation of this only, so this would be true. So A is true, so this would be removed. Now, if the local non-satiation assumption of preference is satisfied, any solution to the consumer utility maximization problem satisfies the budget with equality, which also makes sense because in this case, if the non-satiation assumption is not being satisfied, which means you need more of the good, so you will end up spending at least whole of your income. So in this case, we don't even need to look at the D part. Okay, 3 constraint optimization problem. Maximize z equals to log x subject to x equals to 1. This won't have any solution because we'll take log value close to infinity. Log x as x approaches very high values, so this won't have any solution. Okay, now A would have no solution. So B is saying that A would have a solution, so we will remove this. Okay. Now B part, maximize z equals to log x subject to x less than 1. So we know log 1 equals to 0. So log x where x is less than 1, this is not even satisfied. No value of x would be there such that x can take less. So this is not defined itself. because the domain is from 1 to infinity of log x. So it cannot be defined for any value less than x, so it would have no solution. So this would also be removed. Now subject to this. So log x should take value very close to 2. Very close to 2. But it cannot be equal to 2 because it is strictly less than 2. So it would be 1.99999, then again 9, then again 9. So we won't have a specific solution to it. So none of it has any solution. Okay, coming to 116. So if you have studied about Ramsar Convention, it is related to wetlands, conservation of wetlands. Paris Agreement in 2015, which was for greenhouse gas reduction of greenhouse gas emission. So let's see if from this we can solve it. A3. Okay, A3 is in this. So the others are eliminated. And for D it is 2. D is 2. So we have 4. Okay. Now looking at question 117. Coase theorem states if the property rights are well defined, victims pay and polluter pay principle would be considered. So Coase theorem would be A would be matched with 1. And tradable emission permit would give you the quantity, would make sure there is quantity restriction. So A1, D3, we will get to 2. Okay. Now looking at question 118. Kenneth Arrow. Okay, so if you must have studied about Arrow, Solo, so we'll see if we are able to infer anything on this basis as well. For Arrow, focused on welfare economics, Robert Solo model that we have discussed is for economic growth theory. So B4, A3, B4, A3, A3. So we are left with 2 options only, and then it would be a 50-50 case. But since behavioral economics is also getting noticed nowadays, so because they have won a recent Nobel Prize in behavioral economics only, so if you have any idea, it would be Daniel Kahneman for behavioral economics. And Joshua Ingres worked for analysis of causal relationship. Okay. Now, this is taking a bit more time, but yeah, I guess it would be worth it. Okay. Now, if you look at demographic transition, it is related to replacement rate. Stages of growth is related to takeoff. Okay, we'll see if we are able to infer anything from this. A3. Okay, A3, B2. Okay, so this would be the right answer. Okay. Now, log model would mean elasticities are constant. The coefficients are, okay, so this would be removed. Weighted least square corrects for heteroscedasticity. Autoregressive model includes lag of dependent variable. Logit model, okay, this was fairly basic. A2, B1, C is 4. So we have this. Okay. So if you have heard about the permanent income hypothesis, life cycle hypothesis, policy ineffective proposition, real business cycle theory was propounded by Prescott. So C is 4. C is 4. So we are left with only these 2 options. Then if C is 4, D is 1. Right? So we are left with options 2 and 3. And if we see it carefully, we will see that permanent income hypothesis was given by Milton Friedman. This is very famous. So A would be 2. So the answer would be 3rd. Okay, now we are doing question 122. I'll take a break after 125 question for 1 minute only. Now, unequal exchange, development of underdeveloped for backward and forward linkages. Backward and forward linkages, I guess, were given by Hirschman. So C1. So, and now we need to know at least one more. And if you have studied about Midreal theory, it is related to backwash effects. So D is 2. So the answer for question 122 is C. These two theories are quite common, and this is the unbalanced theory, and this is his theory depends on how two relatively known areas develop, how the development of one hampers the development of the others. Okay, now 123rd question. Sum of squares of n in normal variate minus its mean divided by standard deviation. This is standard normal distribution. D is 3. So these two options are removed. So C is 2 in both of it. So C is 2. No need to study this. No need to read this again. And sum of squares of n independent standard normal variates. Ratio of a standard normal variate to square root of an independent. This is T and this would be chi-square. So B is 1. This was also a very basic question from basic econometrics only. Okay. Now, investment is unresponsive to the interest rate means IS curve is vertical. Now, investment is highly responsive to interest rate means relatively flat IS curve. So for A it is 4. A it is 4 and for D it is 1. Okay, so we have D1, A4. Money demand is perfectly elastic with respect to interest rate. LM curve would be horizontal. For B it is 3. Okay, so this is the answer. Now 125th. Okay. Now if we are doing question 125, the quantity theory of money was given by Milton Friedman. Involuntary employment was shown by John Maynard Keynes. So, okay, with the help of this only we can solve it. Arrange the following steps of exchange rate channel of monetary transmission mechanism in correct order starting from first to last. So we are talking about monetary transmission mechanism. Now the initial thing is reduction in the policy rate. A is initial, so we'll rank it as 1. Now if there is reduction in policy rate, that would lead to capital outflows because the interest rate in other countries would be higher. If there is capital outflows, that would lead to depreciation of the currency, and hence depreciation of the currency would lead to rise in net exports. So the answer would be A, B, C, D, C. Okay, next question. Is the following names of former governors of RBI in sequence in which they held the post starting from earliest to latest. So the latest, so if you will see, if you have any idea about who the latest is Urjit Patel, the committee who made the monetary policy committee, was the first governor to be the chairman of the monetary policy committee. Before him it was Raghuram Rajan. So even if you know about these two, you will know the answer would be this. And then D. Subbarao and Y.V. Reddy. Arrange the following events in Indian financial system in correct chronological order starting from earliest to latest. So implementation of IBC was in 2016. This is very latest. Okay, ठीक है, they have already given it. Nationalization of 14 commercial bank 1969. Setting up of this happened in the 2000s. And setting up of UTI may be in between this. UTI was not launched between 19 before, not before 1969. So it is between this. So we'll rank 1. We'll rank this as 1, 2, 3, 4, and I will check. So it is actually C. This is pension regulatory. I'm sure about this, that C happened before A and D happened at last. So we need to fill in the space for B. So it might be the case that B happened, C, then A, then B. D is last for sure. Okay, I'll think it again. Now, if D is at last and nationalization of banks occurred in 1969, which is a setting off of pension funds and regulatory development authority would not have occurred at 1969. So this would be removed because A is coming out to be first, and setting up of UTI. So I'll go with 2. So this is a calculated guess, not a random guess. Okay. Adverse selection is hidden type of agent. Now, if you talk about Shepard's lemma, it is related to the envelope theorem. Okay, so we have A is 2 and B adverse selection is 1. So these two are removed. Well, B is 1, B is 1, A is 2, A is 2. Now, if you will see, Hotelling lemma is related to profit function. So C would be 4. So we have this. Then Roy's identity is related to indirect utility function. Okay, now coming to question 130. Sponsored schemes and choose the right sequence of time. Right to education, Ayushman Bharat, Swachh Bharat Abhiyan, Ujjwala scheme. Okay, I am not sure about the timeline of these. So yeah, so since I'm not sure about the timeline, I'll make a guess here. Okay, it's a very lengthy question. ठीक है. This we are on question 131. ठीक, I'll try to do complete this. I'll take a 1 minute break at least. I need to drink some water. Okay, now this is question 131. Well, chow test is normally run to understand if a single regression run on pooled data is more efficient to describe the relation between a dependent variable and a set of independent variables than the same regression being run separately on two subgroups of sample. The steps involved are choose the correct answer from the following option. So we need to tell about the sequence. If you'll go through, first you need to find RSS of the pooled sample, then for the different, for the two subsamples, calculate the F ratio, compute critical and calculated F ratio, then do not reject of this. So the sequence would be A, B, C, D, E. It is fairly simple. Now coming to question 132, and is the following in order of their year of establishment starting from oldest. So Tendulkar committee is the earliest, so we'll reduce. And then looking at the options, Lakdawala is second last, and Alak committee was one of the most earliest one. So it would be between 2 and 3. I'm not sure about the Khusru committee when it came in Nayak committee. So it would be between 2 and 3. It would be a 50-50 gives. Okay, now falling chronologically starting from the oldest. So if you are starting from the oldest, this is the Lewis theory. This is the oldest for sure. So we had E initially, and then we need to compare big push, capital accumulation, cumulative causation, unbalanced growth. So theory of big push came after this. Since the options were EA, AE, so A is second, so we have this. And unbalanced growth is very recent, and one of the propounders of it is Hirschman. We did one question related to it as well. Thoughts, schools of thought and macroeconomics from chronological order. Oldest to most recent one. Oldest one was classical. First we have C, these two are removed. Then Keynesian to counter it, C, then A, then then monetarist, E, then new classical, then new Keynesian. So this is fairly basic. Okay, I am not in a mood to read. You need to find the correct order. You can just go through this question. I'm not in a mood to read this question anymore. This looks like very big question to me. So this would happen in the exam as well. Okay. 136. Agriculture GDP constitutes less than 16% of GDP at that prices, and less than 20% of aggregate GDP in constant prices. ठीक है, this can be true. Services GDP constitute less than 16% of aggregate. Services share is close to 56 to 60%. So statement 2 is definitely wrong. This is statement 1 is correct and 2 is wrong. So what with they're saying statement 2 are correct, this can be okay. The government's spending on social services as a percentage of GDP has been rising since this. As a percentage of GDP, it is very difficult to rise, because even if the GDP is growing, then the growth in percentage would be very different from. So there's a difference between absolute number and relative. So the relative growth is very difficult to take place. So this statement is false. Spending on social services as a percentage of total expenditure has also been continuously rising. This is also false. These are very extreme statements. So both are incorrect. Now, human development is a process of enlarging people's choice, because human development index is based on following indicators: life expectancy, expected of school. Yeah, so both these statements are correct only. Okay, 139. Given a random sample, the distribution of the sample mean tends to a normal distribution as the sample size becomes very large. And this is one of the property of the central limit theorem only. So both A and R are correct, and R is the correct explanation of A. Okay, now coming to 140th question. Okay, I'll try to wind it up quickly. According to Domer condition of debt sustainability, the public debt would not rise as proportion of GDP if the effective rate on government liabilities happens to be less than or equal to the rate of growth of GDP. So the condition is, if the interest rate is less than the growth rate, then there would be no, then the debt is sustainable. So the public debt would not rise, would not rise as proportion of GDP if the effective interest rate on government liabilities happens to be less than or equal to the growth rate of GDP at current prices. So this is true, because growth rate of an, this is true, assertion is true for sure, so this can be removed. Growth rate of GDP of an economy at current prices is bound to be less than the effective interest rate on government bonds. No, this is the contrary of this. So A is correct, but R is not correct. Now coming to, okay, so these 5 questions are related to each other. ठीक, we'll solve this. And after this, assume that there are two firms producing steel. There is negative externality due to the production causing pollution. Firm's 1 output is Q1, firm 2 का Q2. Market price is 1. Scenario 1, firm 1 cost is C1 equals to Q1 square. Firm's 2 cost is Q2 plus 0.75 Q1 whole square. In short, basically firm 1 की production is not dependent on the production of firm 2, but the production of firm 2 is dependent on production of firm 1. Okay, the first question is, what is the equivalent profit of firm 2 in the short run in scenario 1? Now let's check what the output level would be produced by the firm 1. So firm 1, profit 1 would be P. P is 1 into Q1 minus Q1 square. So this is total revenue, this is total cost. So del pi 1 by del Q1 would give us value 1 minus 2 Q1 should be equals to 0. Del 2 pi by del Q1 is coming out to be minus 2, which is less than 0. So 2Q equals Q1 equals to 1, Q1 equals to 0.5. Now if Q1 equals to 0.5, then for profit of firm 2 would be price into Q2 minus Q2 plus 0.75 into 0.5. 0.75 into 0.5 will give you 0.375 square. Okay, now the profit maximizing bundle would be del. So the profit of the firm second is 1 into Q2 minus Q1 plus 0.75 Q2 square. So this is Q2 plus 0.75 Q1 square. So del pi 2 by del Q2 is 1 minus 2 times Q2 plus 0.75 Q1 into 1, the coefficient of Q1. And if Q1 is 0.5, we have 1 minus 2 times Q2 minus 1.5 into 0.375 equals to 0. So we have 1.5 into 0.375 equals to 0.5625 minus 1 divided by 2. So if you'll solve it, you'll get Q2 as 0.265, 0.218. Q2 is coming out to be 0.218. So 0.218 minus 0.218 0.8 plus 0.375 square. Okay, ठीक है. So if you'll solve this, you'll get, we are having Q2 as 0.218. So if we'll solve this, the profit for Q1 is coming out to be minus 0.125. Okay, I'll take just another 1 minute break because it's getting very exhausting. So I'll just solve it again if you want. Okay, I'll solve it again. So I made some calculation error here. Okay, now we know Q1 is 0.5, which is the optimum bundle. So profit 2 would be 1 into Q2 minus Q2 plus 0.75 Q1 square whole square. So del pi 2 by del Q2 would be 1 minus 2 times Q2 plus 0.75 into Q1. This should be equals to 0. So 1 should be equals to 2 times Q2 plus 2 into 0.75 times Q1, which is 0.5. So 2 into 0.5 would give you a value of 1. So 0.25 equals to 2 Q2. So Q2 equals to 0.125. Now profit 2, if you'll put Q2 here, it would be 0.125 minus 0.125 plus 0.125 plus 0.75 into 0.5. 0.75 into 0.5 is 0.375. If you'll add 0.125 to it, you'll get 0.5. So minus 0. So square 0.5 square. So we are having 0.125 minus 0.25, which is minus 0.125. So the answer is this. Now, what is the long run profit of firm 1? Now, if you are talking about firm 1, quantity is Q1, profit of 1 is 1 into Q1 minus Q1 square, and we found Q1 was coming out to be 0.5. So it is 0.5 minus 0.5 whole square. So it is 0.5 minus 0.25, which is 0.25. So the answer is 3. Okay. Now, what would be the market equivalent profit of the two firms in scenario 2? Okay, so far we have discussed about scenario 1. Scenario 2 is negative externality works both ways. Cost is this for both the firms. So, okay, we haven't done. Okay. So, what is the long run profit of firm 2 in scenario 1? So, in the short run, the firm is incurring a profit of minus 0.125. So, in the long run, it should exit the market. So, the profit would become 0. Now, the fourth part, the scenario. So, this is question 144. The scenario has changed now. Now, the cost function is, the PDF is being saving. Okay, now the cost function is C1 is Q1 plus 0.75 Q2 square. I'll just verify it once. C1 is q1 plus 0.75 q2 square. C2 is q2 plus 0.75 q1 square. Now the profit level should be same for both these firms, right? And the first order condition, profit of first firm would be q1 minus q1 plus 0.75 q2 whole square. So this is, if you do the first order differentiation, we'll get 1 minus 2 times q1 plus 0.75 q2 equals to 0. So this condition gives us 1 equals to 2 q1 plus 1.5 q2. Similarly, the second equation would give us 2 q2, okay, 1.5 q1 plus 2 q2 equals to 1. So if we multiply this by 4 and this by 3, so we'll have 8 q1 plus 6 q2 equals to 4, whereas we'll have here 4.5 q1 plus 6 q2 equals to 3. Subtracting, we'll have 3.5 q1 equals to 1. So q1 is 1 upon 3.5. So 1 upon 3.5 would be 0.2857. q1 is coming out to be 0.2857. Now the profit, and this would be equals to q2. Now the profit of the first firm would be q1 minus, so q1 and q2 would be same, so it would be 1.75 q1 square, and 1.75 into 0.2857 whole square, this value is coming out to be 2857 minus 0.2499, so 0.25. So this value is coming out to be 0.03, and this is close to this value because 1 by 28 gives you exact value 0.0357. So we are having 0.0357 here as well. Now moving on to the next question. Do you think that the equilibrium outcome for scenario 2 is inefficient? How will the efficiency be restored? Now the first is no, the equilibrium outcome of the firms are profit maximizing outcome. Okay, this is possible. The externality can be resolved by closing down both the firms. This doesn't make sense. If one of the firm is forced to close down, the externality will be reduced and the joint profit is this. So I'm not sure about this, but I'll guess this because it is coming out to be efficient. Okay, now moving on to the next question. Okay, so this is a comprehension only. This would be easy to solve, and it is expected from the next 5 questions you would be able to solve at least 4 based on the comprehension. Okay, so far we discussed the past year of 2023, and if you are able to make close to 60 to 65 questions, and I'm talking about the general category right now, so you would be able to clear the UGC net for sure, or this will fetch you a good score. This would be close to 120 to 130, and if you even score 60 in the first paper, you will be through. 180 is a 180 to 180, 90 would be a very decent score to score in this exam. So I hope this video was of some help to you. Thank you.